Thank you so much for staying with us. Well, there are those who will be wondering how come, they can't, well, maybe some people have told you that they can't hear or see sunrise anymore and they want to continue to follow the conversation because on the other platform, we are already on the platform. So here is what you can tell them to do. Channels Television has 2 live streams. One is called Channels Television Live. Then there's another one called Channels Television Live Stream. We are right now on, the station as you're seeing us, and on Channels Television Live Stream on YouTube. So you can send that word out. And for those who would rather, watch sunrise. And of course, we are all on your terrestrial stations as well, right this very moment. So, questions around leadership, and hey, that's what leadership does, right? I mean, you always provide solutions. 2 options for people. You want to watch the platform on Channels Television, you can watch the platform. You want to watch Channels Television Sunrise, you can watch Channels Television Sunrise. So we are not a mono-economic.
Choices.
We're not a mono-economy. We don't only produce oil. We produce other things as well. Anyway, questions around leadership. Nigeria's pace of economic development and political and social stability have been with us since independence, for a very long time. Our journey towards nationhood, many say, haven't even started. So the challenge principally is that the gap between the ideals, ideas, and theories of leadership and its practice and application in the context of the Nigerian project continues to widen. So our best organized conversations, dialogues, and platforms on the subject have remained unsuccessful in initiating and or catalyzing change and reforms to narrow the gap. There are those who believe that Nigeria is in a difficult place today, an extremely difficult place, with grave insecurity, macroeconomic instability, and as you also heard in our previous conversation, microeconomic challenges as well, stagnation, stagflation, all kinds of things.
Unemployment, poverty.
The numbers are just...
Like the other showman said, the list is endless.
Exactly. So who are we looking for in 2023? Or should I also ask, what are we looking for? Earlier, we talked about what to hope for. Now we want to talk about transformational development. We also heard earlier someone talk about servant leadership, all kinds of transformational leaders. Mm-hmm. I also learned another one just recently, situational leadership, the one that can adapt into any shape or form just to solve a problem and move on. Let's have a conversation.
The amoeba.
Exactly, because, in a family, problems evolve. Even if you're not a financial expert, you have to solve financial problems at home and all of that. So we have 2 gentlemen joining us this morning. Abiodun Bamidele is a development expert. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Happy Independence Day.
Wish you the same. And joining us all the way from the United States is Dr. Toye Shobande, who is an international author and strategic leadership expert. Thank you for joining us this morning, Dr. Shobande. You kindly unmute yourself so we can hear you, but we know you are there. So let's begin with you, Mr. Bamidele. This is where we are. Talking about transformational development for Nigeria. Earlier, we spoke about the kind and level and evolution of development that we've had over the years in the First Republic, the regions having complementary development in each region, healthy competition among them. But this is where we are now. We're quote-unquote central government with 36 states that have to look up. Where do we go from here?
I would like to start by saying that sometimes you are so overwhelmed with the state in which Nigeria is, and you are tempted to think that our situation is hopeless, and there's no way out. But the truth of the matter is that when you look at history and you also look at contemporary realities, the fact remains that Nigerian situation is not hopeless. It's just that it cannot be business as usual. I'm glad that today we are talking about transformational development. And anything that has to do with transformation, certain things are inevitable. Number one is the fact that there must be a radical, significant, and deliberate attempt to first acknowledge I am not where I am supposed to be. And that for me looks like a major challenge that we have as a people. We are a people, regrettably, who will see red and want to insist that what you are seeing is not red, is green.
It's what lawyers do, they argue.
And unfortunately, even non-lawyers are also doing the same now. Because the question first and foremost is, who is that person behind what I'm talking about? If it's my brother, is my sister, is in my religious circle, is from my tribe, is from my community. So even if that person is going down the drain, the person still wants you to know that I am getting it right, and he wants me to agree that he's getting it right. So I want to say first and foremost that Nigeria, we are not where we are supposed to be. A few days ago, I was looking at the African Infrastructure Development Index. I felt like weeping.
Before you weep, let's take the opening comments of Dr. Shubande. First of all, Dr. Shubande, let me begin by asking you, are we even aware of, well, we know what the numbers say. Inflation figures, poverty figures, unemployment figures, those are figures that we're well aware of. Do you think we're aware of the precariousness of the situation and the urgency that we need to get our development right, to transform our development, so to speak?
Thank you very much, Mr. Makinde. When we discuss development, we discuss it from a perspective that is warped, and that is a perspective that makes it look like it's an external thing. External to the sense that nobody takes responsibility for development. You can't hold anybody for development. Government is a way of abdicating responsibility. When you say government is responsible for this, it doesn't usually work that way. So we lack self-awareness, and there are no data, there are no aggregated research that measures in practical terms what developmental strides we are to make or we are not making, such that it can be relatable, that people can feel it directly. A lot of that is just in throwing numbers around, throwing jargons, throwing big words. Nigerians are tired of checking dictionary to find out what those words mean.
That's right.
These people don't have dictionaries anymore. They can Google it, but it is not relatable. Why? It is not experiential. Because when they wake up in the morning, the first thing they are looking for is they are looking for water to have their bath. There's no water. There's no light. They are waking up very early to get on the bus. On their way to getting on the bus to take them to work, they are being robbed on the road. Then they are now stuck in traffic. All of those things have a way of killing people's mental strength. It takes a sap's life out of the person, because all the person is wired to do is to think of how to survive. You cannot sell the idea of transformational development to someone whose mental index is about survival, he can't relate. He can't relate. So that survival instinct has made the average Nigerian dyslexic. We can't unlearn and we cannot relearn. So when we look at a lot of these things, look how many Nigerians understand the budget when we discuss budget every year. How many Nigerians understand the implication of our debt profile on their average life?
Okay,
So
perhaps just a second. You're speaking to the issues, and in order to wipe the tears of Mr. Abiodun Bamidele here, who was about to start to cry,
Honestly.
and because the issues can get anyone really worked up. But you've spoken to the core of one of the issues, which is the fact that the figures, the rhetorics, don't speak to the reality of Nigerians. You're a strategic leadership expert. We can't have development, or rather transformational development, without having a transformational leadership.
That's right.
And since you are into this strategic development or strategic leadership tangent, what should we be talking about in order for us to get our transformational development trajectory right?
First off, our prevailing mental model, which is culture, is anti-transformation.
Wow.
So that word is alien to us. Let me make a joke out of it. An average Nigerian on the street, they will think they're talking about the transformer on their streets that blows every now and then, and they have to gather money to repair the transformer. That's the only thing Nigerians can relate with in the word transformation. Why? Because in our cultural index, transformation is alien to us. We are transactional, we are not transformational.
Wow.
Our cultural index, our prevailing mental orientation is transactional. It's about reward and punishment. And if you see that, you will see it in the speech of our political rulers. And you also see it in the body language of our political rulers. Their communication is transactional. Their style of doing business is transactional. If you vote for me, I will give you road. If you vote for me, I will give you transformer. If you vote for me, I will make dollar 1 naira. If you vote, it's transactional. So our leadership index culturally is not tilted towards transformation.
But do you blame the Nigerian, Mr. Dr. Shobande? Just a second. Do you blame the Nigerian? We know, Mr. Bamidele, let me quickly cut you. I'll come back to you, Dr. Shobande. Do you agree with him, first of all, what he said, where he said we are more of a transactional than a transformational set of people in our minds?
I was here some times ago, and I made a point, which I want to repeat and insist on, that while I agree with him that to a good degree, we are transactional people. Now, what choice is left to a person whose major drive, just like where he started from, that we have programmed people to first think about survival. So the point is, keep them in that position so that that position of impoverishment, I hope I'm...
Impoverishment.
Thank you.
You'll pay for that, don't worry. Go ahead.
Thank you. For as long as you can keep them in that state, they become a tool in your hand that you can always use
He said
to exploit.
Now, he said culturally, historically, not politically, not democratically. In other words, it's not, if I understand Dr. Shobande right,
okay,
he's not saying it is something that just started in our polity or politics. It's something that had been part of us before politics came. Am I correct, Dr. Shobande? Is that what you're saying?
You are very correct.
Okay.
You are very correct.
So if that is the space, that is the space, it means that we just transited from the monarchical or cultural or traditional system of government that we had, everything we had and were into this democracy.
If you look at our history of how we gained independence, the approach to it was transactional. The system of government we are very good at copying and pasting without understanding the implication in terms of our cultural context. And that's what we are doing again. We are trying to adopt a leadership style that is alien to our culture in Africa and across sub-Saharan Africa. Because I did a research work of over 7 years and I documented it in a book titled The Leadership Myth: Why Leadership Development Principles Do Not Work in Sub-Saharan Africa. It's a 7-year research project. So I understand and I know what I'm talking about. When you look at our administration locally, in terms of how we appoint the kings, the obas, the chiefs, when you look at our history, what is transformational about this approach of selecting leaders at our local level? So we must look at our cultural fit, our orientation, then now go into our educational system. You will see that mental model there. The lecturer tells you what you should learn, and you should give him back what he has told you. Don't do any independent thinking. Just follow the curriculum. The lecturer will come and people shout, hey, Iwe, because he dictated the textbook to you that has expired since 1978. They've done 7 revisions afterwards. And the lecturer still brags in his ability to quote from page 1 to page 300. And students are meant to repeat the content of that book and they pass it down. So our factory line educational process is to memorize information, not to practically impute it into their daily experiences. All the algebra and the almighty formula we learned in school, how are we using it today?
Oh. Mr. Shobande,
What we relevant to our economics?
Dr. Shobande, now that you say that this thing is inherent,
Yes.
where does that leave us? We want to transit to the transformational.
That's right.
So what are we going to do about it? We cannot.
I hate to sound like a prophet of doom. We cannot transit like that. We have to deconstruct. We can't. If you try to transit, we'll be frustrated. We've been doing transition all the while, and we have had an unending transition process. We have to deconstruct, and deconstructing has to start with the prevailing mental model, and it has to begin from the very minute. I love at the beginning of the show when you were talking about the local government autonomy, and you were surprised that Lagos State, of all states, have not signed. Does that not tell you something? Does that not speak volume to the things we are discussing? The people who are in governance, people who are in rulership, they came from that mental model. It is difficult to change somebody's mental orientation when they become an adult. It's very difficult. And let me say it in Yoruba parlance. They said, "Omota oko lo ma gbe eta kota." No matter the level of infrastructural development, that is, if you fail to raise a child, that child you are faced to raise will destroy, not only destroy, it will sell the house you spend millions in building. That's what we are doing. We focus on building external structures while we have failed to build a system that is work into people's thinking. How do I know? The government spends money and construct road. They build a bridge and they tell people to cross the bridge, but the people would cross the road. They won't use the bridge. Then they will use the bridge as a market space. They'll be selling products there. What do you think is responsible? That's not government function.
Perhaps
it's a mental model.
Perhaps another way. My apologies. My apologies. We'll come. Let's really understand what the issues. I mean, one of the ways in which the government has tried to do that, to get ahead of that, is to build dividers, on the expressway, so you don't.
They still tear them.
But exactly. Anyway, but just a quick one.
Yes.
We'll come. Yes. Just to quickly inform you that there is a lot going on right now in Abuja. We told you earlier that the platform has started. But if you also look at your screen right now, you'll see that there's a parade going on at Eagle Square. Right now, the president is doing that, which you can see on the screen already. And as at this moment, quite a number of guests are there. The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, of course, is a special guest of honor. He's there. He has proceeded to assess the parade, and he's inspected it already. We have the President of the Senate is there, the Speaker of the House of Representatives is there, the Vice President, of course, is also there, and former President Goodluck Jonathan is also at that event that you are seeing on your screen now. Parade of Guards that you're seeing is part of the annual, celebration of Nigeria's independence that you are seeing on your screen right now. Okay, so the conversation needs to continue. So that's some transformation going on there. I don't know. Let me just. So
we didn't have any parades in Lagos, did we?
Well, I don't.
Normally, it's in all state capitals.
All state capitals. Maybe that's also happening. I'm not sure. Maybe that is also happening. We don't have that information yet.
Yes. So back to our conversation. So, Mr. Bamidele, Dr. Shobande has just burst our bubble by telling us that we cannot transit.
No. He said we cannot transit like that. Mm-hmm. So some things have to happen.
Yes. So we have to be reoriented. How do we begin this reorientation of the psyche of the Nigerian?
I still go back to where I started from. That before you can talk about transitioning, you must first come to a point of realization, I'm not where I should be. Mm. Immediately, we all are on the same table with that. I think that will have been a major step forward.
Okay.
Take, for instance, election is coming soon, all right? And like Doctor said, because of the transactional orientation that has been there over the years, somebody is already waiting. How much is somebody offering me before I decide to vote? But I don't want to agree that it's a totally hopeless situation. Before you talk about things, there are three major things that I feel should be the starting point. Our values, our belief system, then the basis of our social interaction. I was talking to someone yesterday who just left Nigeria not too long ago, a medical doctor, and I was asking him, how is work? He said, one major thing I can tell you is a major difference here is that there is no room for assumption. When somebody comes in as a patient, it doesn't matter what it is, you are required to dig the issue of that person to the basis. And immediately I said something to him. I said, the reason that is just simple. The value they place on human life in that environment is not exactly the way it is here. It is an environment where it doesn't matter what I have to lose. In fact, I hope you're not surprised that some people are ready to offer their father, they are ready to offer their mother, because our environment has been created to let them know the means is not important. It is the end result that matters. So these are things we need to start addressing. I'll give you a practical example. Not too long ago, my children, 3 of them, washed their clothes and, trying to dry it on the lines. The youngest went towards evening to pack the clothes. She only packed us and came in with it. And I was there when the mother was asking, I thought the clothes on the lines are more than this. She said, I only picked mine. That action is driven by something in the inside. So immediately I said, you will go back and pack for your brother and pack for your sister. And when it is their turn to do the same, they will also do for you. So I think that to say it is an impossible task, to say it might take us a long time, I agree. But to say it is an hopeless thing, and I want to say it begins even from the home structure. To an extent, let's get back to our homes. 5 pieces of meat in the pot. The father, the mother, 3 kids. Go and check most of the time. Maybe daddy takes 2, mommy takes 2, and the kids share the remaining. You might not have said something, but you have communicated to the children that adulthood is an opportunity to oppress.
So it's not a scam.
So that child looks forward to being a mother too, and
so
the father
that she
too,
can do the same
so that
to
you
her
can do the
children.
same. So it is something that is systematic, progressive, but it is possible.
Well, something that you have both said now is that at the end of the day, if we're going to have transformational development in Nigeria,
That's right.
we have to have a transformed set of people.
That's right.
You have spoken to values. I have seen those values written in the Constitution. Dr. Shobande, you're essentially saying it's a long road to Uhuru, but we need to begin somewhere.
Mr. Bamidele needs to copyright meet example just give.
Sorry?
And I agree with you totally. Mr. Bamidele needs to pay me copyright for the example he just gave about the meat. And I agree with him totally. I'll send you my invoice for the copyright.
Well, you will know that I've not seen the book at all because you are not even Nigeria.
I am so proud of you as a parent for what you have done for that little child of yours. You have modeled leadership. That child will never forget that lesson you taught that child, whether it's a boy or a girl. You have taught that child the problem we are trying to solve in governance today. Selfishness.
Yeah.
I grew up with an example like that, where one day my brother came home and packed rice, packed food, and my mom looked at him and said, only you will eat that rice? You didn't think of your brothers, you didn't think of your sisters, your dad has not eaten, I have not eaten, and you just came and packed everything. My mom used to say something when we were young. Don't think of yourself alone. Be considerate of others. It was a value system we were raised with, myself and my siblings. When we think, we don't think of ourselves. We think of the implication of our actions on our siblings. And as a parent, I do that for my children. If I'm spending money to buy a new suit, I'm asking myself, this suit is...
Oh dear.
I think he's
that
muted.
approach is what we are seeing in our budgetary system in governance.
But Dr. Shobande, there are a good number of people who are raised by parents the way your parent raised you. I mean, you are not, too old or too young to be given birth to by 50, 60, 70-year-olds.
You are correct.
So no, I'm coming. Just a second. So the caliber of people, exactly. So the caliber of people in government today were raised by parents who were raised, like yours,
Yeah.
who also were supposed to have would have exemplified character, values, one way or the other.
Yeah.
It's about the same. The only thing that we have. So how did those values transit from the time they were being raised to the time they got into governance?
Thank you for that question. I was going to tell Mr. Abamdele earlier that my message today is not about hopelessness. My message today is to stir us to think and to collectively align in terms of the solutions we want to profile. It's not to just suggest hopelessness. If you look at the history of our economic decadence, the decline, every human being is subject to a diminishing orientation, diminishing return based on the environment they are operating in. An environment has a way of conditioning people. So somebody may have been raised right in a very good home, and the person finds himself in an environment. If he allows the environment to influence his action, influence his attitude, influence his lifestyle, the person will cave in. It's called peer pressure at a certain age bracket. So you will observe that the decadence started happening when the economy started going down. People's needs, in terms of the hierarchy of needs by Maslow, psychological safety, sense of significance, all of those things, they began to go in the time that all they are now thinking of is survival. Such that in those days, if I came home with a pencil that does not belong to me, which had happened to me at 18, I cannot forget the beating that I got. But people take those values now and go into that same peer pressure of parents telling their children, when are you going to get married? When are you going to buy a car? When are you going to? The parents are not even the ones putting the children
Sure.
under pressure. Why? Because they are comparing their family with another family that is seemingly doing well. The environmental conditioning is one of the reasons why those values are being erased.
Okay, Dr. Shobande, we have enough time to think about solutions that can really take us further, both of you gentlemen. Now, let's start from this one. How do we begin to transit both from governance to the homes or from the homes to to governance? I think it was not too long ago, maybe about 2-3 weeks back, the governor of Edo State, Governor Obaseki, you remember what he decided to do? Said, if your child is not in school, we're going to prosecute you.
That's right.
Now, I don't know how that would happen, but do you see a situation or a time or a space where government will begin to call out poor values or poor value orientation that is displayed by citizens or indigents?
It has to be reflected in the manifestos of our political parties who want to claim governance and who want to rule us. A governor can say that, but that will not hold waters because it's contravening constitutional provision that says government is not responsible for you to be educated. It's part of the constitution. Government cannot be sued to court for failing to take care of your welfare. So, if the governor should prosecute a parent, the parent can also take the governor to court over the fact that it is not justiciable. So that means we can say the governor is also contravening constitutional provisions because that is one leg of the constitution that is giving us headache to date.
But Dr. Shobande,
to make those changes, we had to infuse it into the manifesto, those values.
No. Dr. Shobande, while you are right, just a second, while you are right, I think, just a second, Dr. Shobande, you wanted to...
Yes, the Constitution also states that children between the ages of so and so must be in school.
Yes,
that same Constitution says that.
I agree. I know, I'm aware of that. I'm not saying that in this country we like speaking with both sides of the mouth. And executives we have will not solve our problems.
But that's not to say, just a second, on that same issue, just a second, Dr. Shobande, we'll get on that same issue of education that you mentioned. The Constitution says that government is responsible not just for the ages, that the government is responsible for educating people, making sure that social classes of people are educated. Government provides that infrastructure. So in a situation where government has made it so happened that, okay, this school is open, is free, you don't have to pay school fees, free education and all of that, and the parents still say the children do not go to school, what happens at that time?
Then the governor can go ahead, if he's constitutionally backed by law, to prosecute, he can prosecute.
Okay,
but that parent will think of food first and think of paying his house rent, paying his health bill.
Understandable. Well,
survival.
An economic factor for the parent. The child is hawking food, hawking products that will bring in money for the family to survive. You have to factor that in.
Okay.
So the factors are beyond the statements we make on TV or those outlandish fiats that makes you look good as a person. It is not systemized, it is not in our structure, neither is it in our orientation. You know, we came a long way where the boy child will go to school and the girl child will be at home to help the mother and hawk and learn trade. But things have changed over the years. We give God praise for that we are working towards that. But you'll be surprised that some people still have some very funny thinking pattern about educating their children.
Sad so.
Okay.
Mr. Bamidele, okay, sorry.
Mr. Bamidele.
Yes, please.
Where we started from is who are we looking for? That's where my partner started this segment from. The time has come when we have all manner of people marketing themselves and their ideas to us. And we, poor citizens, are just sitting down there looking. Many of us don't even know that we have the power, that we are the employers
of these people.
And these people will work at our behest. They are there because we put them there. So we have in our hands the power to actually take them out should they not do that which we consider to be of benefit to us. So, 2023 is round the corner. Who are we looking for?
I'll answer that question very simply. While I was getting ready for today's, I was just trying to do, some research, and then I stumbled on an article written by one Asue. I may not be pronouncing it correctly. Asue.
Asue
Ighodalo. And he was talking about national transformational development in Nigeria, very specifically. And it was such a good read. And I tried to marry that with what Jim Collins proposed from a research of 15 years in his book, Good to Great. Transformational development, just like you started, I agree with you 100% and 1%. You can't talk about transformational development without a transformational leader. Now, the question now is, what are the qualities of this individual that we can call a transformational leader? Mm-hmm. Now, he called it the level 5 leader. And a couple of things are critical. Number one, this individual must have a humble disposition, knowing that I am coming to serve, I'm not coming as a lord. And
tall order.
Tall order indeed.
Carry on.
Tall order indeed.
Going by the culture that Dr.
By the culture that he spoke about.
Okay.
So that is why I agree with him to a good extent that it's a long journey, but it must start from somewhere. Who is that person who is thinking first and foremost about
the
people and the nation? So you want to talk about what is the love quotient of that individual. Then you want to talk about that individual who is though humble and simple, but bold enough to make unpopular decisions.
Firm.
And is firm to see it through. Mm-hmm. We are not talking about big talk now. The capacity to say this is where we're going and follow through.
And risk strikes.
Sorry?
And risk strikes.
You see, at the end of the day, one thing I have discovered from my study and observation over the years is this. Immediately people come to a realization that you are truly and genuinely taking them on a journey somewhere that they can see, they will be ready to follow.
They will follow.
So that individual must be someone who is ready to give credit to people working with him to say, guys, you have got this right. And at the same time, is ready to take blame when things go wrong, to say, I am wrong. You will notice that these few things I have mentioned, we can go on and on, they are not things that we are familiar with. They are not our way of life. However, if we must go the way of transformational development, unfortunately, there's no alternative.
Okay.
So, but let me say this before however, I don't want us to close this discussion believing that the leader we are talking about is that somebody out there. It begins from me, it begins from you. That little space where I exercise a little dimension of authority. How do I relate with those people? As a father, as a mother, as a principal in a school, as a manager in the office. How are these things playing out? I think that is the starting point, and it's very critical.
Dr. Shobande, speaking in the same light, who are we looking for? Please factor in a number of things that you said earlier. These people who want to employ the leaders in 2023, they have clear and present demands. House rent, you mentioned house rent and all those things. Yeah. Poverty is, as some politicians have said in time past, have been weaponized against them. But they have to be a transformed set of people before they can produce a transformed leader who can give us transformational development. That journey, where do we begin?
I didn't hear the last statement you made.
I said that journey, where do we begin, or how do we begin?
Mr. Bamidele had laid the foundation for how to begin. And he says we must start from the very core of the society, which is the family. And that is what I have been advocating. And because the family is the major institution that shapes people. But unfortunately, we are seeing that the science for shaping and modeling is now being taken out of the control of the family, because internet, technology, is now parenting people and parenting people's children, even in their absence, and infusing values and infusing orientation into them that the parents themselves are not even aware of. Why? Because they're on the road chasing bread and butter.
Survival.
Number two, let's look at our religious institutions. How many of our religious institutions have transformational leaders leading them? How many of our religious institutions that is supposed to be a legacy institution that forms and shapes people's orientation have helped? I'm not here to sound like a hopeless person, but I'm getting us to think, because when we go for those powerful programs, church programs, at the end of those anointing services that we go for, right in the church premises at the car park, church members are fighting. They are not giving each other right of way.
Yes.
There is traffic inside the church premises. Which mindset, transformational mindset, produce those kind of religious people? Because we're very religious people, we abdicate responsibility to God. That transformation, religion can help us achieve it. How much has our religious institutions helped us to shape people's transformational orientation? How much humility are people imbibed from going to churches, from going to mosque? How much of that is reflected? The schools, look at what we are experiencing with our strike. Look at what we are experiencing with our secondary schools, with our primary schools. How much are the teachers earning? What value does a teacher have that he will give to a child that is transformational, that the child will take and grow up with? I'm looking at areas where we can point out transformation. I'm looking at institutions that can help us build this transformational orientation so that we can have an aggregate effect of it that can be national and we can change things. How many media houses, how many of our youths today are listening to this program and they are not on YouTube watching their own shows, or Instagram watching somebody doing skits? How many of our skits by comedians is promoting transformational values rather than objectifying women as sexual objects? If you look at the trend of the skits that we are producing, that people are laughing about on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, is it promoting those values? How many of our musicians, our entertainers, who are supposed to be legacy people, models for transformation, are singing songs that edifies people's orientation towards national transformation, towards producing the kind of leaders, the kind of songs that emphasize on societal values that are important? But today, the quality of music is promoting drugs, promoting money, promoting all sorts of things. The people will come up and say, hustle, work, and yet the same person is a kidnapper. Look at those institutional frameworks that we have. That is where the transformation can be long-lasting and it can be effective.
Dr. Shobande.
If we don't move into those systems or those institutions, all we'll be doing is to speak English, to above people's head without effects.
Well, Dr. Shobande, it seems like all the questions you have asked today, you will write them down. You will give it to all Nigerians to answer the questions themselves, and then we'll manage
the transformation start. People love God. People worship God, and yet they treat their neighbors badly.
It's a great place.
And yet they are serving God, praising God, and you want them to be transformational in their orientation.
Dr. Shobande, it's a great place. I can imagine how. I mean, it must be really frustrating for you having studied all of this leadership stuff, and then to see that all these things.
Jargons. I have those jargons in my family.
No. The ones that you have thrown, the ones that you have thrown today is enough. We have to thank you very much. Dr. Toye Shobande is an international author and strategic leadership expert. We thank you for being a part of this conversation, particularly because it's about 3-4 a.m. where you are now, and you stayed up just to be a part of this conversation. Thank you so much. We truly appreciate that. As well as Mr. Abiodun Bamidele, who is a development expert. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Program.